When you focus on yourself and stay silent, everything falls into place. That is not a cliche. It is a fundamental law of life. The moment you stop scattering your attention on noise, distractions, and the opinions of others, you reclaim the one thing that truly belongs to you, your energy. Most people waste their strength trying to explain, trying to prove, trying to fight battles that don't matter. But silence is not surrender. It is the mark of control. The one who can withhold words, who can sit in silence while the world screams for a reaction, is the one who holds the true power. When you lock in on yourself, you begin to see the illusions fall apart. The people who doubted you, the ones who dismissed you, the ones who tried to provoke you, they lose their grip. Why? Because they feed on your energy. They thrive when you argue, when you react, when you chase validation. But when you cut that supply and redirect it inward, you become untouchable. Silence combined with focus strips them of their influence. Suddenly, you are no longer dancing to their rhythm. You are building your own. Focusing on yourself does not mean shutting out the world in bitterness. It means turning every ounce of your energy into growth. It means using silence as a forge where you strengthen your mind, your discipline, and your resilience. Every second wasted on proving yourself to others is a second stolen from your own transformation. But every second invested in silence, reflection, and relentless action is a seed planted for a future no one can deny. You see, silence is not passive. It is strategic. The oak tree does not announce its growth every day, yet its roots dig deeper, its trunk grows stronger, and its branches spread wider. That's how power works. It does not beg to be noticed. It does not scream for attention. It simply becomes undeniable. And that is exactly what happens when you focus on yourself in silence. You don't need to tell anyone what you're building. They will see it. They will feel it. They will have no choice but to acknowledge it when it towers above them. But understand this, focus is not easy. The mind is restless, the ego wants to react, and the world constantly tempts you to break your silence. That's why few people ever reach the level where everything truly falls into place. Discipline is the key. To hold silence when your pride wants to speak is power. To stay focused when distractions scream for your attention is power. To keep building while others waste time is power. The one who can do this is unstoppable. Think about it. The strongest individuals you've ever observed are rarely the loudest. They don't explain themselves endlessly. They don't get dragged into meaningless debates. They don't waste their fire convincing doubters. Instead, they channel every ounce of energy into becoming sharper, wiser, stronger. And when they finally step forward, their presence carries weight. Their silence before that moment wasn't emptiness. It was preparation. This is where most people fail. They want recognition without mastery, applause without discipline, respect without restraint. But the order is unshakable. Master yourself first and everything else aligns. Work in silence and the results will announce you. Focus on yourself and the noise will fade into irrelevance. Stay disciplined and chaos will organize itself around your presence. That is the pattern. That is the truth. So the challenge is this. Can you stop wasting words and energy? Can you hold your silence not as weakness but as strategy? Can you focus on yourself so fully that the distractions no longer penetrate your mind? If you can, you'll notice something incredible. The right people begin to show up, opportunities begin to flow, respect begins to surround you, and life begins to fall into its rightful order. Not because you begged for it, not because you fought for scraps of attention, but because you became the person who attracts it effortlessly. The world bends to those who master themselves. It resists those who try to control everything else. Silence is mastery, focus is mastery, and when you commit to both, you stop chasing and start attracting. You stop explaining and start demonstrating. You stop reacting and start leading. So let the noise continue outside you. Let others waste their strength proving, shouting, scrambling. Your task is different. Your task is higher. You focus on yourself. You grow in silence and you trust the truth that has always been unshakable. When you master yourself, everything else falls into place. Most people misunderstand silence. They see it as absence, as emptiness, as weakness. But true silence is not about the lack of words. It is about the presence of control. It is the refusal to be dragged into noise that adds no value. It is the discipline of holding back when your ego demands reaction. And in that control lies a strength that is more powerful than any argument, louder than any outburst, and sharper than any insult could ever be. Think about the ones who command the deepest respect. They are not the loudest in the room. They are not the ones rushing to explain themselves, to prove their point, or to win every petty conflict. No. The ones who command respect are those who can stand in silence, unshaken, while others lose themselves in chaos. Because silence does not mean they have nothing to say. It means they refuse to waste their voice where it doesn't matter. Silence is not emptiness. It is power under control. To remain silent when your pride wants to speak is one of the greatest forms of strength. Anyone can shout when provoked. Anyone can argue when attacked. But very few can withhold their reaction, protect their energy, and conserve their fire for battles that truly matter. That is the difference between the ordinary and the powerful. Silence is restraint. Silence is clarity. Silence is the decision to rise above instead of sink down. Respect is not earned by noise. Respect is earned when people realize you don't play their games, when they see that their provocations cannot move you, that their judgments cannot define you, and that their noise cannot disturb your calm. They are forced to respect you, even if they don't want to. Silence commands because it is unshakable. It unsettles those who expect chaos and find composure. It disarms those who seek war and meet stillness. That is why silence held with strength is a weapon greater than words. But make no mistake, silence without inner growth is just emptiness. Controlled silence is different. It is active, not passive. It is the silence of someone working on themselves, building their strength, sharpening their focus. It is the silence of the disciplined, not the defeated. You don't stay silent because you have nothing to say. You stay silent because you are too focused on becoming stronger to waste your words. And that difference changes everything. When you master this kind of silence, you begin to rise. You stop reacting to every distraction. You stop being tossed around by every opinion. You no longer need to explain your worth. It shows in the way you carry yourself. People sense it. They feel the weight of your presence, even when you speak nothing at all, because silence, when rooted in confidence, has a language of its own, and it speaks louder than any words ever could. Controlled silence also protects your energy. Every argument, every unnecessary debate, every attempt to prove yourself drains power from you. But when you choose silence, you keep that energy within. You redirect it into building, into discipline, into mastery. Instead of scattering your fire, you channel it. Instead of burning out, you grow stronger. And in time, the results of your silence speak so loudly that no defense is ever needed. The truth is, silence is not weakness. It is the ultimate test of strength. Weakness reacts to everything. Strength chooses what deserves a response. Weakness seeks validation in words. Strength needs no validation because it knows its own worth. Weakness shouts, strength waits, and in the end, strength always wins. So if you want respect, learn to hold your silence, not the silence of fear, but the silence of mastery, the silence that comes from knowing who you are, from controlling your emotions, from refusing to give your energy to what does not serve your growth. That silence builds an aura no one can ignore. That silence creates respect no words could ever demand. That silence becomes your power. Remember this. Silence is not weakness. It is controlled strength that commands respect. Those who understand it rise above. Those who misuse it fade away. Choose your silence wisely. Use it as your shield. Use it as your discipline. And let your silence, steady and unshakable, become the very voice of your power. Most people spend their lives running in circles, desperately chasing approval, love, validation, and opportunities. They exhaust themselves trying to grab what always seems to slip further away. The harder they chase, the more distant the goal becomes. But here is the paradox. The moment you stop chasing, the world begins to chase you. The moment you turn your focus inward, the external world starts aligning itself with your energy. That is the law of self-focus. It creates alignment. When you focus on yourself, you reclaim your center. You stop scattering your attention across people who don't value it, situations that don't deserve it, and distractions that drain it. Instead, you anchor your energy inward, sharpening your mind, strengthening your body, and disciplining your spirit. And alignment is born from this very act, because the universe bends toward those who have mastered themselves. People feel it, even if they don't understand it. They are drawn to the energy of someone who no longer needs them, someone who radiates completeness without seeking approval. Chasing, on the other hand, is weakness disguised as effort. When you chase, you tell the world you are incomplete. You broadcast neediness, and neediness repels. But when you focus inward, you reverse the equation. You build so much value within yourself that others feel compelled to draw closer. You stop asking for attention and start commanding it without a single word. That is why the strongest presence is born from self-focus, not pursuit. Think of it this way. The sun never chases the planets, yet they orbit it without fail. Its gravitational force pulls everything toward it. That is exactly what happens when you cultivate your inner power. Instead of scattering energy outward, you build it within until it becomes undeniable. And suddenly opportunities, respect, relationships all begin to orbit you naturally. Not because you begged for them, but because you became magnetic. Self-focus is not selfishness. It is the highest form of responsibility, because only when you're aligned with yourself can you give anything real to others. A broken, scattered, chasing soul has nothing to offer, but a focused, grounded, disciplined individual radiates stability that uplifts everyone around them. When you stop needing from others, you begin to lead them. And leadership, true leadership, is never about chasing. It is about becoming so aligned that others naturally follow. But let's be clear, self-focus is not easy. The world is designed to distract you. It tempts you to chase what glitters, to prove yourself, to seek recognition. Every voice around you tells you to hurry, to pursue, to not fall behind. Yet alignment requires the opposite: stillness, discipline, and patience. You must resist the urge to chase and trust that building yourself is enough. This takes strength because silence feels like inaction. But in truth, silence is where the deepest action occurs. The roots grow underground long before the tree is visible. When you shift focus inward, everything changes. You stop competing with others and start competing with who you were yesterday. You stop asking, do they see me? And start asking, am I growing? You stop trying to prove your worth and start embodying it. And with every step of progress, your alignment grows stronger. That alignment becomes visible. People sense it in the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you exist. They cannot ignore it because alignment has a weight to it that chasing never carries. The irony is that the world values most what it cannot easily have. When you stop running toward it, it begins to move toward you. When you stop giving energy to what drains you, it loses power. When you stop chasing people, they begin to notice the absence of your energy. And when you stop begging for recognition, your silence forces others to recognize you. That is the reversal. That is the moment you shift from desperate pursuit to magnetic attraction. Alignment also brings peace because when you are focused on yourself, you no longer measure your worth by how others respond. Their approval becomes irrelevant. Their rejection loses its sting. You are no longer swayed by every opinion because your compass is internal. And with that peace comes strength, and with that strength comes authority. This is the energy that commands respect without words, that attracts opportunities without pleading, that transforms silence into power. So here is the truth. Stop chasing. Stop scattering your energy into the world, hoping it will complete you. It won't. The more you chase, the more fragmented you become. Instead, turn inward. Build yourself. Discipline your habits, strengthen your body, sharpen your mind, align your actions with your vision. And when you do, the world will shift. It will no longer resist you. It will begin to bend, to align, to chase you, because self-focus is not about ignoring the world. It is about mastering yourself so fully that the world cannot ignore you. And when that happens, you will realize something powerful you never had to chase. You only had to align. The strongest people you will ever encounter are not the ones who make the most noise. They are not the ones who argue with everyone, explain themselves constantly, or rush to prove their worth. True strength lives in silence. And not just silence for the sake of quiet, but disciplined silence, chosen silence, silence with purpose. Because when silence is disciplined, it becomes a forge. Inside that forge, confidence hardens and inner power begins to rise. Discipline in silence means you know when not to speak, when not to react, when not to give your energy to things beneath you. Anyone can talk. Anyone can react. Anyone can lose control and let emotions dictate their actions. But to restrain yourself, to hold your words when your pride aches to shout, to sit still when provoked, that is mastery. That restraint builds a fire inside you. That fire, contained and controlled, becomes confidence. And that confidence becomes unshakable. Confidence does not come from convincing the world to believe in you. It comes from proving to yourself in silence that you can master your impulses. Every time you stay disciplined in silence, you tell yourself, I am in control. I do not bend to chaos. I choose my battles. I'm stronger than my emotions. That inner dialogue, repeated through discipline, shapes the foundation of real confidence, the kind that no one can give you and no one can take away. Think about it. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. Their noise is a cover for insecurity. But the one who sits quietly, observing, speaking only when necessary, radiates authority without trying. Why? Because silence is power. And when that silence is held with discipline, it cannot be shaken. It makes people lean in, pay attention, and wonder what strength lies beneath it. Discipline in silence also builds patience. In a world addicted to noise and urgency, patience is rare. Everyone wants to react now, prove now, win now. But discipline teaches you to wait, to bide your time, to choose the moment that matters. That patience gives you an advantage others will never have. It means you never move out of desperation. You move out of clarity. And clarity is where inner power lives. Power is not about dominating others. It is about mastering yourself. And self-mastery is impossible without discipline. When you discipline your silence, you are training your mind to resist the pull of chaos. You are telling your emotions they do not own you. You are telling your ego it does not control you. And over time, this discipline turns into inner steel. You become untouchable, not because the world stops testing you, but because you stop breaking when it does. Confidence grows in silence because silence forces you to face yourself. Without distractions, without endless talking, without constant noise. You are left with your thoughts, your fears, your doubts. Most people run from that. They bury themselves in chatter and noise to avoid facing the mirror of silence. But if you endure it, if you discipline yourself to sit in silence and confront those inner voices, you learn something powerful. They cannot break you. They cannot control you. And once you realize that, confidence takes root. Inner power is not about what people see. It is about what you know about yourself when no one is watching. It is built in quiet rooms, in late nights of discipline, in the silent sacrifices no one applauds. It is forged in the silence of practice, of patience, of persistence. By the time the world notices, it is too late. You have already become unshakable. Understand this. Discipline in silence is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is the highest form of strength because it requires the most control. Anyone can explode. Anyone can react. Anyone can make noise. But to choose silence, to hold your power inside until the moment is right, that is what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. That is what builds confidence so solid that no insult, no rejection, no failure can shake it. And when you carry that kind of confidence, the world responds. People trust the one who does not need to speak constantly to prove themselves. They follow the one who radiates calm in chaos. They respect the one who holds their silence like a weapon, using words only when they cut the deepest. That respect is not demanded, it is commanded. And it is commanded through disciplined silence. So let the world make noise. Let others fight battles that don't matter. Let them waste energy on proving, on chasing, on shouting. You will do something greater. You will choose silence. You will choose discipline. And in that silence, you will grow roots so deep that no storm can uproot you. You will build a confidence so unshakable that nothing can weaken it. You will cultivate an inner power so strong that the world itself bends around it. Remember this, discipline in silence builds unshakable confidence and inner power. Hold your silence with strength, guard it with discipline, and let it shape you into someone who does not just survive the noise, but rises above it. The greatest battle you will ever fight is not against the world. It is not against enemies, critics, or doubters. The greatest battle is against yourself, your impulses, your fears, your laziness, your distractions. Most people lose this battle daily, which is why their lives are filled with chaos. But the moment you master yourself, something extraordinary happens. Everything else begins to fall into place. Self-mastery is the foundation of order. Without it, life becomes a storm. With it, life begins to align. You don't need to control everything outside you, because when you gain control within, the outside adjusts itself. Chaos cannot touch a person who has built discipline, clarity, and strength inside. The storms may rage, but the one who is mastered within stands unmoved, calm, unshakable. Mastering yourself begins with discipline. Discipline over your habits, over your thoughts, over your emotions. It means refusing to be a slave to every impulse. It means controlling what you eat, what you consume, how you spend your time, where you place your energy. Without discipline, your life scatters in every direction. But with it, you align your actions with your purpose. Discipline is the first step to mastery, and mastery is the first step to order. Confidence also grows from mastery. Not the false confidence of pretending or performing, but the deep confidence of knowing you can trust yourself. When you say you will do something, you follow through. When temptation arises, you resist it. When fear whispers, you move anyway. That is real confidence. It is not built by the applause of others. It is built by the quiet victories you win over yourself every single day. Mastering yourself also means mastering your emotions. Most people are tossed around by anger, jealousy, fear, and pride. They react instantly, giving away their power at every turn. But when you master your emotions, you no longer react. You choose. You don't lash out when provoked. You don't crumble when challenged. You don't chase validation when ignored. Instead, you stand in control, deciding your response with strength. That is power. That is alignment. And here's the truth. When you master yourself, the world begins to respect you differently. People sense control. They sense discipline. They sense a presence that is not moved by noise. Opportunities open because people trust those who are in control of themselves. Relationships shift because people are drawn to stability. Even challenges transform because instead of overwhelming you, they become fuel for your growth. It is not magic. It is the natural order of things. When you master yourself, the rest of life has no choice but to adjust. Think of a leader. A true leader does not demand control over others first. They demand control over themselves. They discipline their actions, their decisions, their words. They hold themselves accountable before anyone else. And because of that, others follow. Leadership begins with self-mastery. Respect begins with self-mastery. Success begins with self-mastery. Without it, everything else is unstable. With it, everything else aligns. Self-mastery also builds peace because when you are in control of yourself, you no longer need to control everything outside. You stop fighting battles that don't matter. You stop chasing people who don't belong. You stop being a prisoner of other people's opinions. Instead, you stand firm, aligned with your values, your vision, your discipline. That peace radiates outwards, shaping the way the world responds to you. But make no mistake, self-mastery is not a one-time victory. It is a daily war. Every day, you must fight the urge to give in to comfort, to give in to weakness, to give in to distraction. Every day, you must recommit to discipline, to focus, to silence, to growth. And every day you win that battle. Even in small ways, you strengthen your foundation. Over time, that foundation becomes unshakable. And when the foundation is unshakable, everything else falls into order. Many people waste their lives trying to control things they cannot. They chase approval. They try to manipulate outcomes. They scramble to fix external chaos while ignoring the chaos within. That is why they remain restless. That is why nothing aligns. But the wise know the truth. Control what is yours, your mind, your habits, your actions, and life itself will fall into line. So the challenge is simple but not easy. Master yourself, discipline your habits, control your emotions, sharpen your mind, strengthen your body, align your daily actions with your deepest vision, stop chasing order outside and start creating it inside. And then watch how the world begins to shift, how opportunities open, how respect grows, how chaos fades. Because here is the unshakable truth. When you master yourself, everything else naturally falls into order.